Throughout this election, conservative lawyer George Conway, also with us, New York University history professor Ruth Ben-Ghiat. She's the author of Strong Men, Mussolini to the Present.
Ruth, I'd like to start with you because you've been at this table with us over this past election cycle, and we've talked about this Trumpism and what it looks like. Trump's wanting to be a dictator on day one. Well, America, here we are. And so I want to get your thoughts of what we can now say is the realized form of American fascism that the American people, by some 50+% decided, yes, let's do that.
Yeah, so this is, there's much to say. We are here now. Donald Trump was very skilled at conditioning Americans to think that democracy, and American democracy in particular, was failing. He called, America a garbage can. He spread with his allies disinformation about the economy, said that America was failing, and praised foreign dictators so that he could bolster his own idea of leadership, which is I alone can fix it. And all of these slogans we've seen for years from him add up to this kind of strongman model of leadership, which depends on having an enemy and an internal enemy, the enemy within, so you can justify these kind of crackdowns on the vulnerable, these repressions, and so this is all very unfortunate. But he did a really good job of conditioning over and over. We've had 8 years of this. Americans to see democracy is inferior to something else. That something else would be strongmen ruled by him.
I'm sorry, but oh, Lord. George.
Yes, ma'am.
Just George.
Anna?
Well, I think it's a little weird, right? I mean, Elon Musk seems to be everywhere at all times. He's like secretary of everything, and at the same time, he's like first lady. The other day, I saw this picture of him. It was a picture of Trump with his entire family, except Melania, but Elon Musk was there. And now you hear about this. There's obviously also conflicts of interest. This is somebody who has contracts with the Department of Defense. This is somebody who has Starlink. That's a big part of what's going on in Ukraine. I find it a little weird, but as Scott said, they won. He gets to do whatever he wants, and if he wants Elon everywhere all the time, that's what's going to happen.
Do you see all undocumented immigrants as should they all be kicked out of the country?
Well, some conservative estimates say that there are at least 15 million illegals who have come into the country on Joe Biden's watch. And it's my hope that we deport every single one of them that we can. And it starts with deporting violent criminals who are in the United States, who came here illegally, who have committed violent crimes. And I think once you do that, President Trump is committed to making that his first and top priority when it comes to mass deportation. And then also on top of that, increase the penalties on businesses who hire illegals in our country and take away the incentive for them to be here and for them to come here. And I think
Ambassador McFaul, let me read you this. It was the scoop in Axios about Elon Musk's role. Donald Trump's phone call with Ukrainian President Zelensky on Wednesday included two surprises. Elon Musk was on the line, and Zelensky was somewhat reassured by what he heard from the president-elect. That's according to two sources with knowledge of the call. The new details of the call underscore how influential Musk could be in the second Trump administration and the uncertainty over how exactly Trump will approach Ukraine. Why might President Zelensky have been reassured by Musk's presence on the call?
Well, I don't know if he actually was, but that's exactly what he has to say. Okay. And which is to say that we were talking about Europe before the break. Many countries, including in Ukraine, I was just in Berlin and Prague a few weeks ago, they've been planning for this outcome. This is not like 2016. They've been courting various people that they think are in the Trump orbit to try to get their ear particularly the Ukrainians, because they are in an existential fight for the sovereignty of their country. And right after President-elect won the election, who was the first to tweet about it in flattering ways, just like Vladimir Putin understands flattery? Zelensky does too. Zelensky is leaning into this idea of an outsider, right? A television personality outsider, just like you, Mr. Trump, because he has to do all that he can to now work with this administration. He doesn't have the luxury of sitting in Palo Alto like I do and analyzing what these populists are going to do. He is in a fight for his life, and now he has to deal with President-elect Trump and people around him like Elon Musk, who might just pop on calls from time to time in the new second Trump term.
You know, Ben Rhodes, a Ukrainian friend said to me that Trump is still Trump, that he can still be easily and almost admittedly maneuvered by flattery. The whole world knows that. How might that be used by clever leaders in democracies to serve democracy?
You know, I hate to be pessimistic about this, Nicole, but look, we have to learn from the first time around. And I talked to a lot of European governments at that time, as I'm sure Mike and John did. They all tried it, right? You'll remember Macron really tried to flatter him, ended up in getting tariffs and huge spats. Theresa May tried to flatter him, ended up in the same place. They're all going to try it again because why not? They have to. I just don't think at the end of the day, they're the people he likes. You know, people who run liberal democracies are not the people that Donald Trump feels affinity to around the world. That's what he says. You know, have you ever heard him when he lists his friends like Vladimir Putin and Kim Jong-un and all these people? He's never listing, you know, maybe Boris Johnson might sneak in there, I guess. But now you got a Labour government in the UK. So they'll try flattering. But I think what's actually more important is to know what your backup plan is here, if you're the Ukrainians or if you're the Europeans. And to know, you know, in the United States system, I think it's also really important for those people to be talking to Republicans in Congress. You know, that actually worked better for Ukraine, including in the Trump administration. A lot of the assistance that flowed to Ukraine in the Trump administration was because there were large majorities in Congress, including Republicans, who wanted to do that. So it's not just about, you know, Trump himself and can I build this personal relationship with him? Because the reality is, you know, I'm sure Trump was very nice to Zelensky because if people flatter him, you know, he says nice things back. But I think we've seen that doesn't necessarily translate him into doing the thing that you want him to do. The Elon Musk part of this is pretty notable, too. You know, it's kind of oligarchy vibes, Nicole. It's in the sense that you've got these kind of titans of industry who are also titans of government. It's very Putin-esque, frankly. Early years of Putin, as Mike knows, to have these kind of oligarchs who are both businessmen but kind of helping to run the government. But what's alarming there is that Elon Musk himself has, you know, tweeted out that, you know, he's